The war between humans and the alien race known as the Seraph had been long and cruel. For years, both sides had fought across ruined planets, broken cities, and empty skies filled with fire. The humans were known for their strength and will to fight, while the Seraph were known for their advanced weapons and strange abilities. The conflict had no end in sight, and both sides had lost countless lives. Among the soldiers who carried the human banner was a warrior named Eric. He was not the strongest or the most famous, but he had survived battles where others had fallen. His armor was scarred, his sword chipped, but his spirit was unbroken. He fought not for glory but for survival and for the hope that one day peace would return. One night, under the shattered remains of a Seraph outpost on a distant moon, Eric's unit was ambushed. The Seraph fighters attacked with brutal speed, and many of his comrades were slain. Eric fought with all his strength, cutting down enemies one after another, but soon he found himself separated from the others. The battlefield grew quiet, the smoke settling like a heavy shroud, and he wandered deeper into the ruins. It was there that Eric found something unexpected. In a dark chamber, hidden beneath broken stone, lay a figure unlike any Seraph soldier he had seen before. She was young, her skin pale blue with faint silver lines that shimmered like rivers of light. Her breathing was weak, her body torn by wounds that no medicine seemed able to heal. She was not a soldier. She was a princess, the heir of the Seraph throne. Eric froze. Every human had been told that the Seraph royal family was untouchable, symbols of power who guided their people. To find a princess lying helpless in the ruins of war was beyond belief. He lifted his weapon, uncertain of what to do. She was the enemy, the daughter of those who had led countless assaults against his people. Yet as he looked at her fragile form, bleeding and fading, he felt no hatred. Instead, he felt pity. Her eyes opened slightly, glowing faintly in the dark. She looked at him not with anger but with fear and confusion. Her lips parted, and in broken human words she whispered, "Help." The sound struck him harder than any weapon. Eric lowered his blade. He was a warrior, but he was also human, and no human could turn away from a plea like that. He knelt beside her, seeing that her veins had collapsed, her body unable to recover even with the strange healing tools scattered around her. Her attendants had fled or died, leaving her to die alone. Eric called out on his comm device for his unit, but no one answered. The silence told him he was alone. He thought quickly. She needed blood, he realized. Her body was failing because it had lost too much. But she was alien, and her kind had never mixed with humans. It was madness to even consider it. Still, as he looked at her, he remembered the faces of the wounded soldiers he had once seen, men and women begging for help that never came. He remembered the helplessness of watching friends die when something might have saved them. He clenched his fist, then pulled off his glove. With a sharp blade, he cut his palm. Blood dripped freely, warm and red. The princess's eyes widened as she saw it. She could not speak, but instinct drew her weak hand to his. Eric pressed his bleeding palm to her wound, and his blood seeped into her skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the faint lines on her body began to glow brighter. Her breathing steadied. Her chest rose with new strength. Her body accepted the blood as if it were meant to be, as if some ancient bond had been waiting for this moment. Eric stared in disbelief, his strength draining as he gave more of himself to her. The pain burned through him, yet he did not stop. He felt her grip on his hand tighten, weak but determined, as though she was clinging not only to life but to him. Minutes passed before he pulled his hand away, dizzy from blood loss. The princess now looked stronger than before, her wounds slowly closing, her breathing no longer shallow. She gazed at him, her silver-lined eyes filled with something he could not understand. Gratitude, perhaps, or maybe something deeper. Eric staggered back, nearly falling, but forced himself to stay on his feet. He knew what he had done was dangerous. If either side discovered that he had given his blood to an enemy princess, both humans and Sereth might call him a traitor. Yet in that moment, looking at her alive and no longer dying, he felt no regret. The silence of the ruined chamber pressed around them. The war still raged beyond those broken walls, but inside, something impossible had just taken place. A human warrior had given his blood to save an alien princess, and what followed would change not only their lives but the fate of two worlds. Arik leaned against the wall of the ruined chamber, his body weak from blood loss. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay conscious. The alien princess lay in front of him, no longer on the edge of death. Her pale skin now had a soft glow, her wounds knitting together with a speed that no human medicine could match. He could not explain what had happened, only that his blood had saved her. For a while there was silence. Only the sound of her steady breathing filled the air. Arik's mind raced with questions. Why had his blood worked when their advanced tools had failed? What kind of bond had been formed between them? He had no answers. He only knew that she was alive, and that was enough for now. Slowly her eyes opened. They were bright, silver and blue like a sky full of stars. She turned her head toward him, weak but aware. Her lips parted, and though her voice trembled, she spoke in her language first. The words were soft and musical, but he could not understand them. Then, struggling, she shifted into broken human speech. "You saved me," she whispered. Arik nodded. "Yes. You were dying. I could not let you die." Her gaze lingered on him with a strange intensity. There was confusion, but also something else. Perhaps gratitude, perhaps wonder. She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. Without thinking, Arik stepped forward and steadied her with his arm. She looked at his hand, still stained with blood, and her expression softened. "What is your name?" she asked. "Arik," he replied simply. She repeated it carefully, as though learning the shape of the word. "Arik." Then she whispered, "I am Lyra." The name carried weight, though Arik had already guessed her importance. She was no ordinary seraph. Her presence, her markings, and the way the guards had protected her before the ambush all spoke of her royal bloodline. She was the heir of their empire, and now she was bound to him in a way neither of them could explain. As they sat together in the ruined chamber, distant sounds of battle still echoed outside. The war had not ended because of this moment. Soldiers still fought, ships still clashed in the skies, but within these walls something entirely different had begun. Lyra raised her hand slowly, studying her skin. The silver lines across her arms pulsed with faint light, brighter than before. She frowned as if sensing something unusual. "Your blood," she said carefully. "It is inside me. It changes me." Arik felt a chill. "Is that dangerous?" She shook her head slightly. "Not danger. Different. Stronger." Her eyes narrowed, and then she added softly, "I feel you. Your strength, your memory, your fire. It is here." She touched her chest. Arik had no answer. The idea that a part of him now lived within her was too strange to understand. Yet he could see it was true. She was healing in ways beyond the physical. It was as though his blood had unlocked something hidden in her body. The heavy doors of the chamber suddenly creaked open, and Arik's hand went to his weapon. A group of Sereth attendants and guards entered cautiously. Their eyes widened at the sight of Lyra awake and sitting upright. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Some bowed deeply, others froze in shock. One of the elders stepped forward, his face lined with age and suspicion. "Princess, you live. But how? We thought all hope was lost." Lyra lifted her head proudly despite her weakness. "This human saved me." The elder's eyes flicked toward Arik, sharp and full of distrust. "Impossible. Human blood cannot touch our kind. It would destroy you." Yet it did not, Lyra replied firmly. It saved me when all else failed. The elder's frown deepened. The attendants looked between Arik and Lyra as if unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. To them, the union of human and seraph was unthinkable, a violation of every law of nature they had believed in. And yet the living proof stood before them. Arik stayed silent, his hand still resting on his sword. He knew that at any moment they might see him as a threat and attack. But Lyra raised her hand weakly and commanded, "Do not harm him. He is under my protection." The guards hesitated. The order of a princess could not be ignored. They lowered their weapons, though their eyes remained wary. The elder bowed stiffly. "If this is true, then it must be taken to the council. The leaders must decide what it means." Lyra nodded, but her gaze stayed fixed on Arik. "Yes, the council will hear of this. But remember, without him I would be dead. Respect him as you respect me." Her words hung heavy in the chamber. For the seraph, respect for a human warrior was unthinkable. Yet the princess had spoken, and no one dared to openly refuse her. As the attendants prepared to escort them out of the ruins, Arik's thoughts swirled. He had saved an enemy princess with his blood. Now she claimed to feel him within her, as though their lives were bound together. The Seraph Council would not see this as a blessing. To them, it might be a threat. To his own people, it might be betrayal. But as he glanced at Lyra, walking weakly but alive beside him, Arik knew one thing. He had acted with his heart, and nothing would change that. Whatever storms lay ahead, this bond was real. And it was only the beginning. The journey from the ruined outpost to the Seraph capital was long and tense. Arik walked between guards who never lowered their weapons, their eyes cold with suspicion. Beside him, Lyra moved slowly, her strength still returning, but every step she took was proof that she lived because of him. The attendants whispered as they passed through corridors of stone and metal, unsure whether to treat Arik as a savior or a danger. When they finally entered the capital, Arik could not help but stare. Towering spires of crystal reached into the sky, glowing with inner light. Floating platforms moved silently through the air, carrying Seraph citizens across the city. It was a place of beauty, unlike anything humans had built. Yet behind the beauty he felt the weight of countless eyes watching him with distrust. He was taken to the grand hall of the council, a vast chamber with high ceilings that shimmered with faint energy. 13 elders sat on raised seats, their faces stern and proud. At the center of the hall stood Lyra, her body wrapped in fine robes, her silver markings glowing faintly. She looked stronger now, but her expression was serious. Arik was placed at her side, surrounded by guards. The eldest of the council, a figure named Varen, rose to speak. His voice carried across the hall with authority. "Princess Lyra," he said, "we were told that you were lost. Yet you stand before us alive. We see this miracle with our own eyes. Tell us, how did this happen?" Lyra lifted her chin. "I was dying. No medicine could save me. It was this human who gave his blood to me. It flowed into my body, and it brought me back." A ripple of shock spread across the chamber. Some elders muttered in disbelief, others shook their heads. Varen's eyes narrowed. "Human blood? Impossible. Their kind is too different. It should have poisoned you." "Yet it did not," Lyra answered firmly. "It healed me. And more than that, it gave me strength." Another elder leaned forward, her tone sharp. "Do you mean to say his blood now lives inside you?" "Yes," Lyra replied without hesitation. "I feel it. I feel him. There is a connection between us, one that cannot be broken." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some elders called it a gift, others called it an abomination. The sound of voices clashing filled the hall. Arik stood silent, his hand resting at his side, his body tense. He could not understand all their words, but he could see their fear. Varen raised his hand, and the hall fell silent. He looked at Eric as though weighing his soul. "Human warrior," he said, speaking in the human tongue with careful precision, "why did you do this?" Eric met his gaze. "Because she was dying. Because I could not stand by and watch her life end. I am a soldier, but I am also human. And a human does not ignore a call for help." The hall grew quiet again. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that none could deny. Varen turned back to Lyra. "Princess, your survival is precious, but this bond is dangerous. It changes you, and we do not know what it will mean for our people. You may no longer be purely Seraph. You may be something else." Lyra's eyes flashed with determination. "Then perhaps that is what we need. Our war has lasted too long. If his blood can save me, maybe it can save more. Maybe it is a sign that our two peoples are not meant to destroy each other." Gasps echoed across the hall. The very idea of peace was unthinkable for many. For generations, the Seraph had fought humans without mercy. To suggest unity was like tearing apart the roots of their culture. Varen's voice turned cold. "Your words are bold, but dangerous. You risk dividing us further. This council cannot accept such claims without proof. Until we understand what this bond truly means, we cannot decide." The elders whispered to each other, their voices low and uneasy. Finally Varen declared, "The princess will remain under watch, and the human will not be harmed, for now. But he is not free. He will stay as our guest, or perhaps our prisoner, until the truth is revealed." Guards moved closer around Eric, their weapons ready though not raised. Eric did not resist. He had expected this. He knew he stood in the heart of enemy territory, alive only because Lyra had spoken for him. Lyra stepped forward quickly, her voice steady. "He is not your prisoner. He is my protector. Without him, I would be dead. If you will not honor him, then you dishonor me." Her words struck the council hard. They could not deny the authority of the royal heir, yet they feared what her bond with a human might bring. In the end, they gave no answer, leaving the matter unresolved. Eric was led away to a chamber within the palace, a place far finer than any prison, yet guarded at every corner. Lyra came to him later, her expression calm but her eyes troubled. "I am sorry," she said softly. "They fear what they do not understand. But I will not let them harm you. You saved me, Eric. I owe you my life, and more than that, I believe you were meant to be here." Eric studied her for a moment. He saw not just an alien princess, but someone who carried hope. Perhaps their bond was more than survival. Perhaps it was the first spark of something greater than war. That night, as the city lights glowed outside the palace windows, both human and princess lay awake with the same thought. The bond between them was more than chance. It was destiny, and destiny had only begun to show its hand. Eric's days in the Seraph Palace passed slowly. Though the council had allowed him to live, he remained under constant watch. Guards followed him through the halls, their silver eyes never leaving his movements. To them, he was not a guest but a threat in human form. Still, his chamber was comfortable, and he was given food and water. It was better than a prison cell, yet the walls felt heavy all the same. Lyra visited him often. Each time she came, her strength seemed to grow. Her wounds had healed completely, and her silver markings glowed brighter than before. She no longer looked like someone who had been at death's edge. Instead, she carried herself with the quiet power of a princess who had been touched by something beyond her people's understanding. One evening, she entered his chamber with a serious expression. "The council still debates about us," she said. "Some believe you are a danger. Others think you may be proof that peace is possible. But there are whispers of betrayal. Not everyone wishes for me to live, and not everyone wants the bond between us to be known." Eric frowned. Betrayal? From your own people? She nodded. There are factions within the Seraph. Some wish for endless war, for they believe only conquest can keep us strong. To them, I am already corrupted by your blood. They would rather see me gone than see me change our path. Arik listened quietly. He understood too well. Even among humans there were those who thrived on war, who saw peace as weakness. For both sides, hatred had become a habit too deep to break. He studied Lyra's face and asked, "What will you do?" "I will stand before the council again," she replied. "I will speak of the bond, and I will tell them it is not a curse but a gift. But if I do, I put both of us in danger. They may not believe me, and some may try to silence me forever." Arik leaned forward. "Then you will not stand alone. If anyone tries to harm you, they will have to come through me first." A faint smile touched her lips. "You speak like a warrior, but more than that, you speak like a friend. I am glad you are here, Arik." Their moment of calm was broken when the door to his chamber suddenly opened. A young attendant rushed inside, her face pale with fear. She bowed quickly to Lyra. "Princess, forgive me, but I must warn you. A group of elders plans to meet in secret tonight. They speak of removing you from the line of succession. They fear what you have become." Lyra's eyes hardened. "They move faster than I thought." The attendant trembled. "They will strike soon, perhaps even before the next sunrise." Arik stood at once, his hand going to his sword. "Then we cannot wait for them to come to us. We must act before they do." Lyra looked at him, torn between duty and caution. "If we move openly, they will call it treason. But if we stay, they may end me in silence. Either way, the risk is great." Arik's gaze was steady. "You survived because you trusted me once. Trust me again. Let me stand at your side, not hidden in this chamber but where all can see." After a long pause, she nodded. "Very well. If they wish to strike, then let them do it in the open." That night, the great hall was filled once more. The council gathered, their robes heavy with authority, their voices sharp with distrust. Arik walked beside Lyra, his presence drawing gasps and whispers from the crowd. No human had ever stood within these walls as her equal, yet there he was, his armor scarred but his eyes unwavering. Lyra stepped forward to speak, her voice ringing clear. "Elders of the council, I live because of this human. His blood flows within me. You fear what that means, but I tell you it is not corruption. It is proof that our two peoples are not so different. You call it impossible, yet I stand before you alive. Do you not see? This bond is a chance for peace." The chamber erupted once again. Some elders cried out in anger, others whispered in awe. Varen rose with a heavy scowl. "Peace with humans? Never. They are destroyers, and you, princess, are now tainted. You would risk the throne for a bond that should not exist." Before Lyra could answer, a sudden shout came from the shadows. A group of armed figures rushed forward, their blades drawn. They were not guards of the council but assassins, cloaked and swift. Their target was clear. Arik moved without thought. His sword flashed in the torchlight as he stepped in front of Lyra, blocking the first strike. Steel clashed, and sparks flew. The council cried out in shock as battle erupted in their sacred hall. Lyra raised her hand, and to everyone's astonishment, light flared from her palm. The glow of her silver markings spread across her skin, brighter than ever before. The attackers faltered for a moment, startled by the sudden display of power. Arik seized the opening, driving his blade forward and forcing them back. When the fight ended, the assassins lay defeated on the stone floor. Silence followed, broken only by the heavy breaths of those who had fought. Lyra stood tall, her markings still glowing. She looked at the council with fierce eyes. "This is the truth you fear. His blood did not weaken me. It made me stronger. Strong enough to survive, strong enough to protect our people. If you call this corruption, then perhaps it is your fear that blinds you, not my bond with him. The council members sat in stunned silence. None could deny what they had just witnessed. The bond was real, and it had given her strength beyond their understanding. Arik stood beside her, his sword still in hand, his presence unshaken. Together they had faced betrayal, and together they now stood as something new. Human and seraph, bound by blood and fate, unbroken by fear. The events in the council hall had changed everything. For the first time, many seraphs saw the bond between Lyra and Arik not as a threat but as a force to respect. Still, suspicion lingered like a shadow over the palace. Some elders whispered that such strength could not be trusted, while others began to wonder if it could be used for the good of their people. Arik and Lyra walked through the palace gardens the next morning. The gardens were a vast network of silver-leaved trees and glowing plants that pulsed softly in the sunlight. Arik marveled at the beauty, a quiet moment away from the tension of politics and war. "You have changed everything," he said quietly. "Even the council fears what they do not understand, yet they cannot ignore the truth." Lyra touched his arm gently. "I do not care for fear. I care for life. You gave me that life, Arik. That is why I trust you, and I hope others will learn to trust you too." Arik nodded. He felt a strange warmth in her words, stronger than anything he had felt in battle. There was more than survival in this bond. There was understanding, respect, and something unspoken that connected them. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a messenger, a young seraph scout who looked both nervous and determined. "Princess," he said, bowing. "There is a group outside the city, humans trapped behind enemy lines. They are in danger, and if we do not act, they will not survive." Lyra's eyes widened. "Humans? In our territory?" "Yes," the scout replied. "They were ambushed. Your soldiers discovered them, but they cannot reach them without guidance. They requested help from the humans in the city." Arik stepped forward immediately. "Then we cannot waste time. Let me lead a team to rescue them." Lyra considered for a moment, then nodded. "You will have my support. And this time, you will not go alone. We will show the council and our people that cooperation is possible. We will save lives together." Plans were made quickly. A small team of seraph warriors and humans prepared to journey across hostile lands. Arik's knowledge of tactics and survival would guide them, while Lyra's new strength and abilities would protect the group. Together, they represented something neither humans nor seraph had ever seen before: unity. The journey was difficult. The terrain was harsh, filled with jagged rocks and sudden chasms. Strange storms rolled across the sky, and alien predators lurked in shadowed valleys. Yet Arik moved with steady purpose, leading the team safely through each challenge. Lyra remained close, her glowing markings lighting the path and offering protection. As they traveled, bonds began to form among the team members. Humans and seraph who had once been enemies now worked together seamlessly. They shared food, healed wounds, and helped each other across dangerous terrain. The presence of Arik and Lyra inspired trust, showing everyone that courage and compassion could exist even in the middle of war. One night, as the group rested beside a quiet river, Lyra approached Arik. "Do you ever wonder if this is all meant to be?" she asked softly. "If our meeting, our bond, was not by chance?" Arik looked at the water, its surface reflecting the stars. "I do not believe in accidents," he said. "I believe people make choices. I chose to help you, and now you chose to trust me. That is enough to shape what comes next." Lyra smiled faintly, her hand brushing against his. "Then we must continue to choose wisely. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone depending on us." The following days were filled with trials. They crossed enemy territory carefully, avoiding patrols and traps. When they finally located the humans, they were trapped in a collapsed cave. Eric quickly assessed the situation and began to organize a rescue. Lyra, drawing strength from their bond, lifted debris with ease that amazed even the Seraph warriors. Together, humans and Seraph freed the trapped soldiers. The rescued humans looked at Eric and Lyra with a mixture of awe and gratitude. They had expected death, but instead they found life and a glimpse of a new future where cooperation was possible. As the group returned to the city, the story of the rescue spread quickly. The council members could not ignore the success. Humans and Seraph had worked together to save lives, and the bond between the warrior and the princess had made it possible. Eric walked beside Lyra, his body tired but his spirit unshaken. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "Our bond is more than survival. It is hope. And hope can change everything." The city awaited them, and with it, new challenges. But for the first time in many years, humans and Seraph looked at each other not as enemies, but as allies. And in the heart of it all, Eric and Lyra carried a connection that no one could break, a reminder that courage and compassion could overcome even the darkest fears. The success of the rescue mission had brought hope to many, yet not all were pleased. Deep within the Seraph Council, a faction of elders had grown restless. They could not accept the idea that a human could wield influence in the heart of their empire. They whispered of rebellion, plotting in secret, their voices sharp with fear and anger. Eric sensed the tension immediately. Even as he trained with the Seraph warriors, teaching them human techniques and tactics, he felt the wary eyes upon him. Some soldiers watched every move, waiting for a misstep. Others tried to avoid him entirely, unwilling to confront the changes that Lyra's survival and bond had brought. Lyra, however, remained calm. She had grown stronger with each passing day. Her abilities, enhanced by Eric's blood, now allowed her to manipulate energy in ways the Seraph had never seen. She could heal minor wounds with a touch, amplify strength, and even create protective shields. But with power came responsibility, and she understood the weight of leadership more than ever. One morning, as the sun cast silver light across the palace spires, a messenger arrived in urgent haste. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing deeply. "A fleet has been spotted at the outer rim. They carry weapons capable of striking the city. It is unclear whether they are friends or foes, but their numbers are great." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "We cannot wait to find out. Gather the council and prepare the defenses. Eric, I will need you by my side." Eric nodded, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. He had fought countless battles, but this was different. This was not just a test of skill, it was a test of unity, trust, and the bond that now connected him to the princess. The council met in the grand hall. Some elders were frightened, others skeptical, but all agreed that action was necessary. Lyra spoke with confidence and clarity. "This is a chance to prove that our unity can be stronger than fear. Eric's blood saved me. Our bond saved lives. Now we must show that cooperation between humans and Seraph can protect all of us." A murmur passed through the room. Varen, the eldest, finally spoke. "We will follow your plan, princess. But we will watch closely. Any sign of failure and we cannot predict the consequences." Preparations began immediately. The city's defenses were reinforced with energy shields and trained soldiers, while Eric worked alongside Seraph engineers to strengthen strategic points. Lyra stood at the center, directing the warriors, her presence both calming and inspiring. Even those who had doubted her could not ignore her courage and power. As night fell, the outer fleet approached. Ships glided silently across the sky, their shapes dark against the stars. Eric and Lyra stood on the balcony of the palace, observing the enemy's movement. The fleet was massive, far larger than anyone had anticipated. "We must strike carefully," Eric said. "If they are hostile, We need to defend the city without risking lives unnecessarily. Lyra nodded. We will not fight blindly. I can shield the walls and the soldiers. With your guidance, we can protect our people. The first attack came without warning. Missiles streaked across the sky, colliding with energy shields that shimmered under the impact. Explosions lit the night, and the ground shook with the force of battle. Arik directed soldiers with calm precision, helping them aim and coordinate against the incoming fleet. Lyra raised her hands, energy pulsing through her veins. A glowing barrier extended across the city walls, absorbing blasts and redirecting force toward the attacking ships. Sparks flew, and the enemy faltered, surprised by the unexpected power of the Seraph princess. Hours passed in tense struggle. Arik moved through the city, assisting soldiers, rescuing those trapped by debris, and ensuring the defenses held. Lyra remained at the front, her energy radiating like a beacon, a symbol of hope for both humans and Seraph. Finally, the fleet began to retreat. Their attacks became scattered, disorganized, and ineffective against the united forces of the city. Arik and Lyra watched as the last ship disappeared beyond the horizon. Victory had been achieved, not through brute force alone, but through strategy, courage, and the bond that had united two peoples. As the city celebrated cautiously, Lyra turned to Arik. "This is only the beginning," she said. "They will test us again, and the council will continue to doubt. But together, we can face whatever comes." Arik smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute. "Then we will face it?" Side by side. The night sky shimmered with stars, reflecting the promise of a new future. The bond between human and princess had grown stronger through trial, and with every challenge, they showed that unity and courage could overcome fear, distrust, and even the shadows of betrayal. The city had survived the attack, but the victory was only the first of many trials. Arik and Lyra knew that both humans and Seraph had much to learn about trust and cooperation. Despite the lingering doubts among the council, a new sense of possibility spread among the people. Soldiers who had once feared each other now trained together. Citizens who had once whispered in suspicion now spoke of hope. Arik walked beside Lyra through the palace corridors. The princess moved with a confidence that was new yet natural, her silver markings glowing softly, a reminder of the bond that had saved her life. She had grown stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. Her people had begun to see her as more than a royal heir. They saw a leader capable of guiding them towards something better. "You've changed this place," Arik said quietly. "Not just by surviving, but by showing them what is possible." Lyra looked at him, a small smile forming. "We changed it together. You have been at my side through everything. Without you, none of this would have been possible." Arik shook his head modestly. "I only did what any human would do. But your courage made it real." Their moment of quiet reflection was interrupted by a messenger. "Princess Lyra, Arik," he said, bowing deeply. "The council has requested an audience. They have made a decision regarding the future of your people and the humans within the city." Lyra and Arik exchanged a glance. They had both expected resistance, but something in the messenger's tone suggested change. They followed him into the Grand Council Hall, where the elders waited, their expressions serious yet less tense than before. Varen rose to address them. "Princess, Arik," he began, "the council has witnessed your strength and the success of your actions. The humans you rescued, the unity you fostered, and the protection of the city have proven that your bond is not a threat. It is a gift." A murmur passed through the chamber. Lyra's gaze softened, and Arik felt a quiet relief. For the first time, the council spoke not with suspicion, but with recognition of the truth. Varen continued, "The council has decided that humans and Seraph will begin to work together openly. Your bond, princess, is acknowledged and respected. Arik, you are now an honored guest of our people. We will follow your guidance in training, strategy, and cooperation. Lyra stepped forward, her glowing markings shimmering brighter. "Thank you," she said simply. "This is not just my victory, but ours. Together, humans and Seraph can protect our worlds, and perhaps even end the wars that have lasted for too long." Applause filled the hall, though some elders remained silent, still unsure but unwilling to oppose the decision openly. Arik felt a quiet pride. He had not sought honor, yet here it was, given by those who had once seen him as the enemy. In the days that followed, Lyra and Arik worked tirelessly. Training programs were established where humans and Seraph soldiers learned from each other. Supplies and technology were shared between the two peoples. Slowly, old grudges began to fade as cooperation proved stronger than conflict. One evening, after a long day of planning and strategy, Lyra and Arik walked to the balcony overlooking the city. The sky was painted in silver and gold, the glow of the city reflecting the stars above. "Look at them," Lyra said softly. "Humans and Seraph, standing together. It feels like a dream." Arik smiled. "It is real. You made it real." Lyra turned to him. "No, you made it real. Your courage, your choice to act when it mattered, it saved my life. And now it has saved so much more." They stood in silence for a moment, the bond between them stronger than ever. It was no longer just survival, it was hope, trust, and the possibility of a new era. They had faced war, betrayal, and fear, yet they had endured, and their connection had inspired others to do the same. Suddenly, a distant sound of celebration echoed through the city. Children laughed, soldiers cheered, and citizens shared stories of what had happened. Life had returned to the streets, brighter and more vibrant than it had been in decades. Lyra placed her hand on Arik's arm. "This is only the beginning," she said. "There will be more challenges, but now we face them together. Not as human and Seraph, not as warrior and princess, but as partners." Arik looked at her, the glow of her markings lighting her face. "Together," he agreed. "Whatever comes, we face it side by side." As night fell and the stars twinkled above, a new era began. One built on courage, compassion, and trust between two very different peoples. The bond between a human warrior and an alien princess had not only saved a life, but it had also forged a future where hope could flourish. And in that future, Arik and Lyra stood ready, bound by blood, respect, and the promise that together, they could overcome anything. The wars of the past would not be forgotten, but the legacy of unity, courage, and the defiance of fear would guide the generations to come. A human warrior had given his blood to a dying alien princess, and in doing so, he had given the universe a reason to believe in something greater.